I do think, though, they have to work overtime to try to paint Kamala as this evil Jezebel, anti-Christian woman because they have to know deep down that Donald Trump is the most anti-Christ candidate we've ever seen.
I just roll. There's so much to get to. I'm so tired.
I'm so tired.
Let's just roll the singer and get this over with.
Do it.
Welcome, friends.
Wow,
That's all I got.
Word works quick.
I tried to be on. I tried to turn on the Tim Whitaker personality, and that was all I had in the tank.
I know. I don't. Do you not just feel?
I'm so tired.
Heavy. I know. I'm like so tired. I feel like because we're just less than 2 weeks out.
Oh my God.
The election, and it's like my body won't let me relax. It's like,
Oh.
you got to do all that you can. You can.
I feel like we've been running on a treadmill at full steam, right? Just running as fast as we can, trying to do what we can to raise awareness about the danger of Project 2025 and MAGA, and somehow it's still this close. And I'm just like, why? How are we here in America? How? And more emphatically, how is it that white evangelicals are the largest supporters of this goddamn MAGA movement? I'm sorry, I'm unfiltered today. I'm so exhausted. If anyone watched or listened to yesterday's episode, you know that it's been the wackiest couple weeks I've had in a long time. My poor wife is recovering from pneumonia. We had a crazy couple days. We have been all out of sorts. My content schedule is all messed up. Sarah's all messed up. My head. I'm just so tired. I'm tired, April.
I am also very tired. It just feels like a lot. I think a lot of us are feeling election fatigue because not just exhaustion from just the constant barrage of news stories. Like every day there's like probably 12 stories I could make content on, and then it's so overwhelming that I end up not doing anything because I'm like,
exactly.
I don't know. I don't know what to go after.
I thought it was just me. Every day I'm like, I could respond to that. I could respond to that. Where's that going to go? April, look at me. My hair is disheveled more than usual. I'm back to my solid gray t-shirts. I haven't even styled myself like I have been recently.
Wow.
I don't care. I've given up.
I haven't washed my hair in like 8 days.
Good for you. You know what? Good.
I am getting a haircut today though.
Your hair looks great.
Oh, thank you. I do have some positive news in all of this.
Great.
I would just like to. So, like, the polls get me down as well, right? Yes. I don't know how much credit to give to the polls, but I'm going to tell you two facts. Okay. First fact: my father-in-law, who has never voted, is in his entire life because he never wanted to do jury duty because he was too busy and he didn't want to lose business because he was like an entrepreneur, right? He registered and voted for Kamala in Georgia because he can't stand Trump that much. First time he's ever voted, he's 65. And he's pretty conservative, too.
You know, that deserves this. Props.
Yeah.
Props.
Another good news that I've heard, I have now heard from 2 people who gave my book, Star Spangled Jesus, to their conservative moms who were voting for Trump. And after reading it, the moms are not voting for Trump anymore.
Look,
Did I accidentally write the antidote to MAGA?
April, you know what you are. You're a missionary to the Christian Nationalists. You are preaching a new gospel to them.
That's my mission field. Saving the lost from Christian nationalism.
We need to get those little postcards printed up of you and I, like Tim and April, missionaries to the Christian Nationalists in America. Support us now.
Oh my gosh, I know. Seriously, that it feels weird because it does kind of feel like I'm going back into the saved another soul, but I actually kind of feel that way. I mean, I would imagine though that the moms were not like super MAGA, like the ones screaming about Kamala telling Christians they're at the wrong rally, which we're going to get to later.
Oh my God, we're going to get to that. There's so much to talk about.
I will take happy little positives where we can. And then on a negative, would you like a negative now?
I don't want one, but go ahead, April.
So I was like on this high of like, my book's changing the world with 2 votes. and then I go to my personal private Facebook page. And I commented on my brother's post, who was like, who are y'all voting for? And it was like crickets. And I was like, screw it, I'm going in. And so I'm like, wow. I'm voting for Kamala because, and this is my personal opinion, so I'm not telling you all who to vote for. Was like, I'm voting for Kamala because, so we can get our country away from fascism and Christian nationalism, and because I believe in the least, blah, blah, blah. It was like very eloquent, whatever. And then someone from my old church, where my dad was the pastor, came in, swooping in, and basically was like, it's really sad how your dad was right when he said that the lost would come, and like basically use my late dad against me to try to get me to vote for Trump again. I'm so tired. It's so
April, can I just be honest? I need to be honest.
Yeah.
When I get in these moods where I'm just depleted, I'm emotionally exhausted, family life is all wacky, I get so unfiltered, and it is so hard not to dehumanize people like that, because the words in my head that I want to just throw out to the world are just not appropriate for they would not live up to our own values of non-dehumanization. Right. I will just say that is incredibly inappropriate and offensive, and I hope that person repents, because it's quite gross that someone has the audacity to invoke your late dad just because of who you're voting for.
I know.
That's the best way I can put it today. I can't go any further, or else I'm going to lose my shit and say some stuff, and people in the comments are going to be like, that's dehumanizing, Tim. I'm going to have to repent next week and say, you're right. What was I thinking? So we'll just leave it there. I'm so sorry. Can we also just acknowledge how, and again, friends, it's Unfiltered Friday. If you don't like it, that's fine. That's totally fine.
We're like less than 2 weeks out of the election.
It is what it is.
We're tired.
It is so frustrating that we're also witnessing the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people at the hands of the Biden administration. Do not come in my DMs, progressive white Christians. I don't want to hear it from you. I do not. It is still an issue, okay? People are being lit on fire. Babies are still dying, and Biden is signing the checks. And he has been for over a year now. That's just data. If you don't like that, go argue with Biden. I'm just the messenger. It is very frustrating that we obviously know what's happening, nationally. We see the threat. April, you and I have talked about this over and over again. We're going to talk about it again and kind of expose even more of just how deranged the MAGA ideology really is. So we get that, but it's just so frustrating that we're also dealing with another political party that is very much hell-bent on expanding empire and on funding the mass slaughter of tens of thousands of civilians, including children, just because of their political alliances and self-interest. And also, frankly, if anyone knows the history of Christian Zionism, we can thank, again, people like John Nelson Darby and our white evangelical tradition for helping to be one of the big levers that have given the U.S. this foreign policy when it comes to Israel and Palestine. So, we just need to keep calling that out. Like, we can't, I don't want to relent because, because people are trying to vote for one person over another. I understand that. And we all know, I think it's very clear at this point, April, who you and I are voting for. I think it's very clear when it comes to all of those things. I get that. But all I will say is that if Harris wins, if she wins, this account and me as a human will be putting her feet to the fire every day on this issue. Like, I'm only going to be louder and more critical until we see a weapons embargo and until we see the Palestinian people, start to be able to live in peace, because it is evil, and I don't use that word often. It is evil what is happening to the Palestinians. It is vile. It is dehumanizing. It is terrible. So I had to get that off my chest too, because I get it, friends. Like, I really do. If anyone gets it, people like April and I really get it. I go to these events. I talk to these people. I know the threat of Christian nationalism probably better than most of you listening, because of all the things that I know that I can't share publicly. I know. And also, What is happening in Gaza is abhorrent. And I don't care what letters in front of their name. We have an obligation as Jesus people to hold their feet to the fire. End rant.
Yeah. No, that is very true.
Just need to say that.
I do like our chances of being able to persuade Harris more than
Oh, for sure. I mean, look, to me, it's like a 0% chance or like a 40% chance. It's a huge upswing. It's still unlikely, which is what bugs me. But I agree, April. I mean, to be clear, I don't think Trump is somehow has a better foreign policy, on this situation.
I mean, he has said that he wants Israel to finish the job.
Yeah,
he said that during the debate.
Clearly. Yeah. People in the GOP have argued for dropping nukes on Palestine. Okay, so
pastors have as well.
Don't come in my comments and tell me, whatever. Like I'm well aware, friends, and I don't mean to sound like I'm talking down to anyone. I don't mean to sound that way, but I promise I'm well aware. I know. I freaking know. So,
I just want to say, I totally understand the desire and the feeling of like you morally cannot vote for someone who is in an administration that is supporting genocide. I 100% get that, the desire to vote third party. I voted third party in 2016 because at that point I thought, I couldn't vote for a Democrat because of murdering babies. And I regretted that every single day of Trump's presidency. So
Yep. I have a personal rule. I do not tell people who are not white men how they should handle their vote when it comes to the Palestinian issue and genocide. Mm-hmm. That is for them to navigate. You're never going to hear me critique, a Muslim woman or a black woman or anyone else for being like, I'm voting third party. You do what you got to do. It's your principle. It's your vote 100%. So I try and be careful about that, and I understand that for sure. But I'm just
saying from my experience.
No, right. I'm agreeing with you.
I did vote third party, and then I regretted it. But everyone's got to do what they got to do, what they feels best. There's no vote shaming here.
Totally. I did not mean to make it seem like you were saying that. I was just kind of tacking on. I didn't mean to come across that way. I was just tacking on. This is how I kind of view it as well. But I'm with you. I voted third party in 2016. I also regretted my decision. So. Do you want to talk about some good news?
Yeah, what's the good news?
Well, I would love your thoughts. You and I got to hang out last week for 4 days.
Oh yeah.
Wow. What's the good news? Oh, I don't know, April. We were in person for 4 days, hanging out, driving around, making fun content.
Yeah. No, that was fun. That was only our second time to hang out in person.
It was great. Did you have a good time at Theology Beer Camp?
I did have a good time. It was a lot of fun. I learned some things. I felt a little out of place because I'm not a theologian, and there was just like all these brilliant people everywhere. And I was like, I just make funny videos online.
Yeah. Have you ever seen my parodies when I turn into a bro evangelical? Yeah, it was great. I mean, I covered my thoughts on yesterday's episode. So people can go back to the previous video or podcast episode to listen. But I'm kind of curious for you, April. Like, what was your overall takeaways? Obviously, Theology Beer Camp, it's kind of a unique thing. It's its own little vibe. You're right. There are some amazing theologians who are just talking about things that you're like, wow, I don't even know where to start trying to digest some of these views, but they're also very thought-provoking. But also, there's a lot of people there. They're all really cool. It's very casual. There's like no real green room. Everyone's walking around talking to everyone. So I'm kind of curious for someone who it was their first time, what your perspective was.
Yeah, it was my first conference to go to since deconstructing and since being on the progressive side. So I mean, obviously it still feels very conferencey. Everyone's got their little lanyard name tags, but it was Lord of the Ring themed, which I'm obsessed with Lord of the Rings. So I mean, clearly my little map back here. I will say to this day, and maybe I'm just still not used to it, but anytime I'm in a church setting and there are queer people just there worshiping, praying, just existing as themselves, I always get emotional. It's such a beautiful sight, and not just existing, but leading worship or speaking, leading sessions. It was just a very inclusive space. And I was surprised too at how there's quite big age gaps too. It wasn't a young person frolicking, which I'm not young anymore, but you know,
we're old.
But yeah, no, I liked it. I think my favorite moment was seeing Pete and Ilya Delio performing Hot to Go.
Yes. We got them in a video. We had fun. I mean, it really was a good time. And friends, I really recommend it. It's happening again next year. It's October 2025. Location to be determined. But even if you're not into theology or beer, and by the way, I'm not a huge beer drinker. I think I had one entire beer the entire time. It's just so nice to be with people. Like, I can't express that enough. It's so nice to be in the same room with people, seeing them for a few days, being able to talk to them. You can get lunch, you can get coffee. It's just so nice having the connection. That's honestly the biggest draw. I can listen to Pete Enns talk on his podcast, right? I can find Ilya Delio, wow, I was gonna say sermons, but they're not lectures. Thank you, Tim, in your head. Lectures. Yeah, that was an out loud thought that just came through. So
I love it.
Thank you. But being able to be in the room with them, being able to talk to them, being able to talk in a group setting with them, being able to meet new people, that's what you can't replicate digitally. And that's really why I make it a point to go every year. Plus, I will say, April, it was very cool and surreal, at least for me, being on the main stage with probably 300 people in the room with Diana Butler-Bass and Brian McLaren and doing a podcast with them. We will try and get that audio and video and try and release it because we got Brian McLaren to get pretty spicy. We had him respond to Josh Howerton and Christian Nationalism. It was great.
Oh my gosh, that was definitely a highlight as well. Like both of them have been so inspiring to me in the last decade in my own deconstruction, and just like sitting there among them and them just looking at us like, I don't know. They were just so great. Oh shoot, I was gonna say something else and now I forgot it.
Well, do you want to play the video we made about us responding to mean tweets?
Yeah. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say.
Oh,
I was just gonna say, when you're in these environments, to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, there's just like this understanding of shared experience and like, you know, like when you meet people just like out in the wild, you don't know where they stand on certain things, and it can be hard to kind of navigate, like, can we be friends? Because I don't know where you fall on issues that really matter to me. But in this environment, it's like we can just skip past all that. Like, we all have religious trauma and it's fine. And we're all here and we are all survivors and we're all, you know, doing our best to live out an authentic faith. And yeah, that was cool. But yes, we show. So Tim took a picture of me, Tim, and Mason Meninga, who is,
we love Mason,
the probably the best Twitter troll in the world.
Probably. Yeah. First place for sure.
In the best way. Like, just trolls conservative MAGA people. But they all think he's being for real, and we all know he's joking. But you posted a picture of the three of us on Twitter, and you said just a few shepherds for sale, practicing our toxic empathy.
Yes,
or
and for
like
the audience who might not know, Shepherds for Sale is a book written by Megan Basham, who's like a far-right fundamentalist, talking about the left-wing drift in white evangelicalism, I kid you not, and how I guess some shadow billionaires or whatever are funding people to push the whole movement left, even though 80% of white evangelicals are voting for Trump. But I digress. So her book is called Shepherds for Sale. And then Ali Stuckey released her new book, Toxic Empathy, talking all about how the left has weaponized empathy for their nefarious gain. So that's why we captioned just a few shepherds for sale practicing their toxic empathy. And then, of course, as expected, like bugs to a bug trap, they all swarmed and started commenting. So many.
Some of them were so bad, like we were like, we can't even read that. Yeah, that's
some of them
terrible.
were not funny. They were just anti-Semitic. They were just homophobic. They were racist, like flat out. But there were a few good ones. So we decided to get into a room because Mason, you and I were all together, and we decided to read them together and then make a video. So this is what this video is.
Can you make it bigger? Why is it landscape like that?
What do you mean landscape?
Why is there black around it?
Oh, because I'm in full screen mode.
Oh, okay.
I can try. Is this? I mean, now it's kind of over our screen. Is this better?
That's fine. Ignore me. It's whatever.
Okay, I'm gonna go back down to where it was.
Fine. I just didn't know if you could even read it because it seemed small.
Well, we read them out loud, and the podcast audience can't see anything. So
Okay, fair.
All right, here we go.
Hi, Tim posted a picture of the three of us on Twitter, and let's read the comments.
Mean Christian tweets. That's the caption.
Y'all are the incarnation of the folks Jesus whipped at the temple.
When your shepherd's on sale and still no one's interested. That is actually a great roast.
Yeah.
I mean, props to that one.
Some of them are creative.
By the way, I am a shepherd for sale, so if you know anyone. Everyone in this pic pees sitting down. You know, some of us like a clean toilet bowl.
Exactly.
What you see moments before the weird poly couple at the gym invites you over on a weekend.
Do we look like
That's my favorite.
Jerry Falwell and his wife?
Proof that Shane needs to make a return.
Oh no.
Jeez.
How the three mice stuck in a glue trap look at you when you grab the broom.
Dudes like this are perhaps the strongest argument that men can indeed become women.
What an ally.
You love a good ally.
Yeah, props to you, my friend. Exactly. Two absurdly creepy men and a dead-eyed woman. Why would anyone share this photo on purpose?
One just says, pronouns, millstones.
No, it does not.
Not an ounce of testosterone in sight. I don't know what you're talking about.
So at the end of that, we all crossed our legs at the same time. And April, you did the full man spread.
I went spread eagle. Yeah.
Yeah, spread
It's
eagle.
so interesting how most of their insults were just like calling y'all feminine.
Oh, well,
Like
are,
it's so
are we supposed to be
patriarchal.
surprised?
Like it's
course.
not a negative to be feminine.
No,
So
it
stupid.
is to them though, because the weaker sex, April.
I know.
Obviously.
I know. I'm aware. I'm aware.
My bad. You're right. Well, should we just get into this story? I mean, we all know what happened, right? Right, friends? We all
Yeah.
know about this Jesus Christ is Lord, you're at the wrong rally thing.
Yeah.
We need to do a deep dive here because there's actually a lot going on, and there's so much to unpack. So we're gonna spend the main story for this week's recap is this story because there's a lot of layers of what actually happened or potentially actually happened. I'll explain that in a minute. Then there's the response from right-wing media. Then there's the response of the influence of right-wing media on conservative evangelicals and what I call is the American Christian Persecution Complex, or ACPEC for short. So we're going to dive into all these different layers because there's a lot going on. So, April, where should we start? Should we just kind of give the actual story first and then kind of dive into the data that we know and then get into the reactions?
Yeah. So do you want to just play the clip from, or do you want me to set it?
Sure. No, I have it.
So basically, so there was Kamala was doing a rally. She started talking about what Donald Trump did by appointing the new Supreme Court justices with the intention of overturning Roe v. Wade, and she was talking about the harm that has caused to women. That's the topic that she's on, is reproductive rights. And in the middle of this, you start hearing a commotion in the background. You really can't make out what anyone is saying from most of the clips that are out there, depending on which camera angle you're at. But she turns to the hecklers and addresses them and tells them that they're at the wrong rally, and basically does she's pretty good at doing clapbacks, and it's a clapback.
Yeah. So the audio that you're going to hear is from like the official live stream of the campaign. So, and keep in mind, friends, that microphones only pick up so much, and I'll explain why that's important. They are in a gymnasium. They are notoriously echoey. That does affect what you can and can't hear. But try and listen here to what the hecklers are saying from this angle with this audio source, and then you'll hear Kamala's response, and then we'll go from there. Here we go.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
Okay, so her body language, in case you're not watching or you can't see this, she's smiling. She's kind of like smirking, like, come on, this is ridiculous. I'm going to play it again because the heckling happens in the very beginning. Listen carefully here and see what you're able to make out. Here we go.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally.
Okay, so I will say, unless you're listening very closely from this angle, it is hard to hear what's going on. I do hear the word lies. I hear like lies, something like that. And so at a first glance, you might say, oh, well, Harris is obviously responding to the people who are yelling lies. I want to be clear, that could be true. Like, that very well could be the case. However, a different angle has a different audio source, and I'm going to play that so you all can hear this. Okay, so this is
this is from a camera, like a phone, towards the back of the room.
Yeah, and this is so therefore, again, the audio source is different, right? You're not hearing the microphones at the front. You're hearing now from the back. Here's what you hear. Listen to this. Okay, I'm going to play that one more time, just so people can really hear it. It's a little echoey. So one more time, just so you all hear it. Here you go. Okay, go ahead, April.
So I was just going to say, for those that are listening, there's two guys. Mm-hmm. You see people being escorted out. So at this point, when you hear, you can hear on this audio, Christ is King and Jesus is Lord. They are saying that facing away from the stage as they are being escorted out because they had been already heckling.
Yeah, I would say they're, a good 75, 80 feet away from the stage in a gymnasium. So it's pretty echoey. People are also shouting. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Like, I want to be honest here. I'm not trying to spin this. Like, I'm looking at the video. My guess is they're about 75 feet away. They're walking out towards their left. An older woman kind of gives one of them like I'm looking at it now. Yeah, like right there. Yeah, it's not heavy. I mean, she's older. She's got to be like in her 60s. So, it's a little, it's almost like a little push off. Like, hey man, get out of here, kind of thing. And they're walking to their left away from Harris, and they yell, Christ is Lord, Jesus Christ is King, something like that. And then there's also some other banter. I think that's where you hear like the word lies come through. And
I
then
did read
Harris
a report.
says,
that I read a report where they said that it might have been people yelling bye, like if it was Kamala people yelling bye to them. But regardless, that is the audio that is louder than it from most angles that I've seen. You hear the lies or bye much louder than you hear Jesus is Lord.
Right. And so the White House actual transcript says this. It says that the vice president said with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and they did as he intended. Audience member, lies, that's a lie. The vice president, oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. Laughter and applause. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street. Applause, laughs. Come on. So the White House, that's their official transcript. I want to be honest, though, and I really, it's very important for us, April, and you know this, to be as honest as we know how to be. When I was at Turning Point USA, and I saw Steve Bannon talk, and he led the crowd in a chant that at first I thought they were talking about Nikki Haley, but at first I thought the audience was yelling, fuck her, Fuckher. It turns out they were yelling Tucker, as in Tucker Carlson. Now, both Steve Bannon and I were in the room, but the room was so big and echoey, you couldn't make out if it was the F word or if it was Tucker. But under closer inspection, it was Tucker. Now, I made a video on this talking about it, and I said that Bannon led the crowd in a chant saying, F her. I had to recant that because I was wrong. They were yelling Tucker Carlson. So I do admit that it can be hard to know in a gymnasium, in a room full of people, when it's loud, what someone actually said. To me, when I listen closely, I hear more of an L, more of the lies, that's a lie, than I hear bye. But I could understand maybe how that could be misconstrued as well.
Yeah, no, when I've heard it, it sounds like lies to me as well.
That's what I heard.
That's the most prominent crowd noise. But also, just think of how "Let's Go Brandon" even came about too. That was because someone misheard a crowd chant. They're actually saying "F Joe Biden," and someone thought they were saying "Let's Go Brandon," and that's how it became a whole thing. Right. So, it's disingenuous to just stay flat out that Kamala was 100% responding to people that were only saying Jesus is Lord.
And this is what I want to get into. There are two, and again, this is kind of a murky situation, but I want to play out for all of us kind of the different paths we can go down. Option one is that the crowd was chanting bye to those two people, and Harris heard them say that. By the way, before the camera starts rolling, the hecklers admit that they were saying how essentially they were calling Harris and abortion a satanic ritual. They were yelling this. I actually have the video. We're going to play that.
Things about Satan. Yeah.
Right. So they were heckling. To be clear, these were two protesters at a Harris rally heckling, which, by the way, usually at any rally, whenever someone starts heckling, they get either kicked out or escorted out. So that happens everywhere.
Right, because you're disrupting. Also, Kamala's official HQ Twitter account, like they posted the clip as a clapback, like they were proud of it. And in their text, they say that she was responding to MAGA hecklers, not Christians. That is the narrative that is out there, but MAGA hecklers. That is how she perceived them. Okay,
so that's option one. She heard them say all this stuff, and as they were walking out, she said that you're at the wrong rally, and the crowd was yelling bye. That's take one. Take two is that people were yelling lies in response to what Harris was talking about with the Supreme Court and abortion, and she heard that and thought, oh, they're talking to me, I'm going to clap back, you're at the wrong rally. And that timed up with those two guys walking out saying Christ is Lord. That's option number two. Option number three is that the crowd was clapping back at those two protesters saying lies, okay? Mm-hmm. And Harris heard all this, didn't know who was being heckled at who, and just made the comment, right? And then I think the fourth option is Harris heard the lies, knew that her audience was clapping back at those two guys, and then said that comment after they said Christ is Lord. Those are your four options. I think what's most likely, again, I've been in these rooms before, they get chaotic, you don't know what's going on. I think what's most likely is that Harris heard the lies part and then clapped back at that, and that just timed up with those two other hecklers who were yelling about, how abortion is a satanic ritual and how Christ is Lord. Keep in mind, friends, that Harris is a Christian. Like despite what right-wing media and pundits are going to tell you, Harris she's Baptist. She spoke at a church, and we're going to cover another pundit who talks about this. She spoke at a church a few days later. Like, she is a Christian. So Christ is Lord, although we're going to argue that this context...
It was Christ is King.
Sorry, Christ is King.
Which has become a dog whistle for anti-Semitism.
100%.
And Jesus is Lord. I think it's far more likely...
Thank you.
Which I agree with you. If you've ever been in a room giving a speech and you're up front... You are hearing your monitors, you're hearing yourself more than you're hearing anything else in the room.
Totally.
I think it's far more likely that she heard a commotion because the articles I read, like the audience turned because at some point they become so loud that everyone was paying attention to them. Totally. And then there were hecklers and addressed them. I would bet she probably didn't even make out what they said.
I would,
if I was a betting woman.
Well, I mean, April, you and I, even on that main stage at Beer Camp, right? That room was so echoey. It was hard to hear whenever we played audio clips. It was so hard to make out what they were saying because the room was just so echoey, right? So again, I'm not trying to excuse it, but it makes no sense to think that Harris heard Christ is King and thought, you're at the wrong rally. I don't think that's the context here, okay? There's more going on. And also, to your point, and we're going to unpack this, actually. These phrases, when said by these two young men who were there, have a very different meaning than how you and I think of the phrase Christ is Lord. So maybe that this is a good time to pull up their interview, because, of course, these two guys, Luke, what's the one guy's name? Luke Polsky, I think. And the other one, what's his name?
Something... Beth, I think. Hold on.
Yeah.
I can pull it up.
We'll find that out. Point is that after this happened, and after the narrative, happened of hey, these two men were kicked out for saying Christ is King, persecution. Of course, Fox News is going to pick them up, right? So here's the interview, a little excerpt in from their perspective of how everything went down. Take a listen, and then we'll come back.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. I would say the first thing I want to bring up, this is our first time taking an interview with anybody, and I think it's important because this is our raw, untold story. There's a lot that happened off camera that we said at the protest, while we were protesting. And I guess we could start off with after she talked about overturning Roe v. Wade and Donald Trump, I yelled out to the crowd that abortion is the sacrament of Satan. And when I said that, I deeply do believe that as a Christian, and about 10 seconds go by, and that's when the video of my friend Grant and I proclaiming that Christ is Lord and Jesus is King, when we said that. And I think it's important to say this is a small venue, and we were about 20 to 30 yards away from Kamala at this point. There's a lot of controversy that says she wasn't talking to us or we left, we didn't get kicked out. Well, I can speak on Grant and I's behalf. On video, Grant's getting pushed and shoved, and there's about 5 seconds after or before she tells us to go to the smaller rally down the street. You can see on the video she waves. She was actually waving to me. I took this cross off my neck that I wear, and as we were getting asked to leave, I held it up in the air and waved at her and pointed to her, and she looked directly in the eye, kind of gave me an evil smirk, and yeah, I just want to clear that up and confirm that she 100% was talking to us. Mm-hmm. And there's other controversy that says we left. We were getting shouted at, pushed, assaulted, screamed at. So we were walking away, but there was about 3 attendees there, volunteers, that kicked us out with badges or whatever they had. And I specifically remember this one man saying, "You were uninvited and unwelcome to this event. You need to leave." And all they did was walk us out the door. They didn't tell us why. No cops escorted us out.
Didn't tell us
no
why.
Service. And yeah, that's our story.
So yeah, hey, I have no idea why after yelling that abortion is a sacrament of Satan and heckling, the Vice President of the United States, why I would possibly not be welcome at this event anymore. Like, I have no idea, guys, what happened to me. Like, I was just saying that this is a sacrament of Satan. I don't understand.
This is the epitome of the persecution complex that runs rampant in Christian nationalism. We see this with Sean Foyt. We see this with any type of Christian protest. People go into a place where they know they disagree with these people. They go in there with the intention to disrupt. They then disrupt, and when they get any sort of negativity put at them, they totally do not admit that it's accountability. It's not accountability for their actions for being disruptive. No, suddenly it's persecution because they are Christians. They, later in the interview too, I don't know if you pulled this clip, but they say they believed God sent them there.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
It's so maddening. Like, ugh.
Can I be
just look in the mirror? Like, your actions, they don't have accountability. They turn accountability into persecution every single time. And the right-wing Christians and media eat it up. It is a persecution kink at this point. People want to be persecuted. They put themselves in positions because they want to get attacked, because they want to go have a story and be like, look, I was being such a good Christian and they assaulted me. And by assault, they mean like a 65-year-old woman gave them a gentle shove. Whatever.
Say it.
I'm so frustrated. It's like, that's not persecution. You are being a nuisance.
Yes. Also, let's play devil's advocate for a second, okay? A lot of people in progressive spaces do things like this, right? We've seen a lot of videos of protesters going to Harris events or other places and, saying free Palestine. My friend Shane Claiborne goes to places like Lockheed Martin to do sit-ins. But you know what the difference is? They don't claim persecution, right? They know what they're doing. They know that they are standing up for an injustice. So let's just say best faith. Let's put our best foot forward. Let's say Luke and God, I forgot his name already.
Grant. Luke and
Grant. Let's say Luke and Grant really do believe that, you know what, abortion is child sacrifice. It is murdering, slaughtering babies, which, by the way, friends, it's not. We've covered this so many times. States with draconian abortion restrictions see a rise in infant mortality rates and in maternal mortality rates. Like this approach does not work for so many reasons. But I digress. Let's just say they really think that. You know what's going to happen when you go into a place where you're going to start heckling. You know you're going to get kicked out. That does not make you persecuted. And also, might we say that when you claim persecution like this, you actually take away from folks who are really persecuted for their faith. Because there are Christians right now all over the world who experience legit persecution for what they believe. Hindus have the same issue globally. Muslims, religious persecution exists all over the place. When white privileged men like this claim persecution for going to a rally, saying incredibly inflammatory things, and being escorted out, right? Has the government arrested them? No. They're on the biggest news network in the U.S. talking about their story without fear of persecution, without fear of their lives or their safety, right? So no, you weren't persecuted. You said something inflammatory. You knew it would get a reaction from the crowd. You were escorted out. That's what actually happened. Now, here's the key. Because when I saw these guys, I go, I have a hunch that there's something deeper going on. Let me do a small deep dive. So I found Luke's Twitter account. It's public, okay? And in the bio, he has something very interesting. He has this Latin phrase. Now, I'm going to butcher it. I can't read Latin, so I'm going to pronounce it in English. It says, Av Christus Rex, and has a cross. I'm like, that does not sound like it's in English. I wonder if there's a connection to this person being Catholic and an ultra-conservative Catholic, because that phrase, I bet, is a dog whistle for something. So, luckily, I have friends in high places in the Catholic tradition. I pulled a friend, he will be anonymous, and I said, hey, does this phrase mean anything to you? Here's what he said, and I was like, aha. He said, I'm going to pull it up. He said, yes, the term is used by ultra-trad Catholics, church militant folks. And then I said, okay, that's really helpful. And I said, if you don't mind, can you give me a quick summary of how you define ultra-trad Catholics? I'm going to use it in the video today. So here's what he said. Okay, and I will just say, without giving anything away, this person knows what he's talking about. Trad Catholics, or traditional Catholics, are ultra-conservative flanks of Catholic culture that first reject Vatican II modernizations of the church that include affirmations of democracy, statements about rejecting anti-Semitism, and local language use local language instead of Latin. Oh, sorry. They reject using local language and instead use Latin. I'm kind of paraphrasing.
So they're pro-use Latin.
Yes, like their mass is in Latin. And if people watch our channel and they remember the Harrison Butker response we did, you're going to hear a lot of the same echoes here. Think about that. Think about Harrison Butker as we're talking here. Number two, they focus on hyper-masculine gender roles and militant on abortion/LGBTQ issues. Three, this wing is most likely to say that there is no salvation outside the Catholic Church and thus unlikely to hold ecumenical space with other Christians the way mainstream Catholics do. So essentially, friends, is you're looking at the Doug Wilson version of the Catholic movement, right? You're looking at someone in his bio who is dog whistling that they are what is known as a trad Catholic. That makes so much sense, because when Luke on the Fox News interview said, I yelled, it's a sacrament of Satan, I was like, we don't really use that phrase in white evangelical Christian nationalist spaces. Usually we'll say, it's a sacrifice to Moloch. That's kind of the dog whistle for those people. But a sacrament, my antennas go up. So what we're looking at here are two ultra-trad Catholics who have very extreme views, who went to a Harris rally, yelled inflammatory things, were escorted out. Harris responded to someone in the crowd. It could have been them, but it could have just been people yelling lies, and said, hey, you're at the wrong rally. Right-wing media goes crazy and says, we knew it. Harris hates Christians. Harris doesn't think that Christians are welcome in America. And they go nuts, all because of this narrative that they concocted.
And also just there's zero logical reasoning happening here either. Like, do you really think that Kamala Harris, less than 2 weeks before an election, is going to tell Christians they're at the wrong rally?
Come on.
There's 0% chance that she would do. She's smart. She is an intelligent woman. She is a politician. She would never do that. Even outside of, she's a Christian herself.
Makes no sense.
There's no way. But the way that I knew, we were at beer camp and I started getting comments on a video where I literally just said, hey, you can be a Christian and vote for a Democrat, and anyone who tells you otherwise is spiritually gaslighting you. And I started getting dozens and dozens of comments of people being like, well, Kamala doesn't agree. She told Christians they were at the wrong rally. And I was like,
such propaganda. It's ridiculous. Again, where's the critical thinking, right? Like where is looking at all the evidence and realizing how things are more complicated than they might seem from a certain media narrative. Now, that being said, we got to talk about this video. This person on camera runs an account called The Girl Named Blake. She has a podcast. She has over, I think, close to 250,000 followers on Instagram. I think that she really is the epitome of how white evangelicals are going to look at this narrative being drummed up by conservative media and how she's going to respond to it. Now that we know all the data that we can give, right? And we know that at a minimum it's kind of murky, but most likely there's no way Harris thought, wow, are these Christians at my rally? Hey guys, you're at the wrong rally. Highly unlikely, given that she herself is a Christian and speaks at churches, all right? Given that, let's just hear how Blake narrates and ties together the assumed narrative that Democrats hate Christians, they hate conservatives, they hate and they love killing babies. They just love it. Like they are bloodthirsty, demons who just want to slaughter babies all over the place. Listen to how Blake kind of weaves these narratives together. And yes, I will be pausing to respond to some of this because some of it is just totally crazy. Here we go.
So I'm sure you've seen this by now. At a rally in Wisconsin last week, Kamala Harris is monologuing about her favorite topic, abortion. And students in the...
Right there. I'm sorry. A little jab. Is it really, Blake? Is it really her favorite topic? Really? Like, have you listened to anything that she's talked about? Do you think that's her favorite topic is abortion? And even if it was, do you think it's because she wants to kill children? Like, is that what you're hinting at here? Harris loves to talk about abortion because they love killing kids. I mean, that's the assumption, right?
They act like Democrats have abortion punch cards. Like,
totally.
Buy 9 abortion gets the 10th one free. Like it's no one does that.
Can I tell you a story, April? I met someone at beer camp. I will not say her name. She was an evangelical conservative woman for a long time, also a midwife, and her experience as a midwife changed her position from this pro-life to a pro-choice position. Now she advocates for pro-choice policies and reproductive health in California. I think I'm going to try and get her on the show to kind of unpack her story. But again, propaganda meets reality. This narrative that there are women out there who wait till the 3rd trimester just so that way they can kill their kid. This narrative, it doesn't add up. And again, look at the data. We share this all the freaking time. If you look at the graphs, abortions fell the most through the Obama years and through other Democratic candidates, right? We know this. Yeah. Yet the narrative by Blake, who has massive influence, Kamala's favorite topic, abortion. It's like, oh my God. Okay.
I know.
Let's keep going.
Stupid.
Sorry, I know I paused early. It's only 7 seconds, but I had to.
Yeah, let's get through it.
The crowd yell out, Jesus is Lord and Christ is King. And her response was telling.
Oh, was it?
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally.
There's the wave. Yeah.
No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
Here's the thing. I know that people want to give her the benefit of the doubt and say that she didn't hear what they actually said. She just thought they were hecklers. Personally, I think there was so much contempt in that response. And also the fact that she followed it up by a few days later going to a church service, something that she has not done once in this campaign, going as far as to skip the Al Smith dinner, tells me she knows that she needs to be in cleanup mode because she knows what she did.
Okay, different theory here. Harris heard people heckling her, heard the crowd yelling lies, responded to them, and then continued on her campaign tour and went to the church that she was scheduled to speak at months ago or weeks ago. Like, maybe that's a more realistic...
It takes time to plan these events.
Right. And also, I mean, Blake, let's just be for real. If she was trying to save face with white evangelicals like yourself, she wouldn't be going to a black church, because we know that many of you think that black folks aren't saved because they vote as for the Democratic candidate. I mean, again, this is not crazy. Ali Stuckey says this all the time. You can't be pro-choice and be a Christian. You can't be a Christian and vote Democrat, right? So what she's saying is that the black church, which votes overwhelmingly Democrat and also is very much pro-choice, is probably not truly in the faith. So again, Blake, I don't know why Harris would go to a black church to try and save face to win you over when we already know that you think Harris loves abortion, And abortion is slaughtering babies, and she just has so much contempt for anyone who would say that Christ is king. Like, we already know. She's not going to convince you. It's understandable.
I know. I saw that thing too. Like, well, if she wasn't addressing Christians, why did she go to a church to cover her tracks? I'm like,
oh my God.
What is it now?
Yeah,
it is such a stretch. They have to be hurting themselves with the massive stretch that they are making to make this about Christian persecution.
Seriously.
So you have a presidential candidate telling you that if you believe that Jesus is Lord, you don't belong here. Meanwhile, you have J.D. Vance, just a few days later, someone does the same thing at his rally, and he stops and says, yes, Jesus is the Lord. The lines have never been clearer, Christian.
Yeah. Yeah, because one party, Christian, I have to make a response. One party uses Jesus as a political stunt, and the other does not. That is the difference here. You have one party that is actively weaponizing scripture and Christianity and the name of Jesus, and they are using the name of Jesus to oppress people, to take rights away. I don't know if you saw this, but Donald Trump's campaign has spent $65 million in anti-trans ads, which is more than any other. That's more than he has ads focusing on anti-trans ads, more than anti-immigration, more than abortion, more than any other topic. He is focusing on trans people, calling them, like, Kamala supports they them.
I've seen that.
It's a terrible thing. I am married to a they them. Like, these people are using the name of Jesus to oppress I would say trans people in this country, especially Black trans people, are probably the most oppressed, marginalized group. And Donald Trump and MAGA movement are spending the most money to attack them. They're already at the most, like, they are the most vulnerable. One of the most vulnerable groups. And they are using the name of Jesus to do that. And they suddenly are like, no, we're the good guys. We're the good guys.
Imagine hearing your presidential nominee say, I don't like to ask for forgiveness. I don't need to ask for forgiveness. And then saying with a straight face, the lines have never been clearer, Christian. Because when Harris told those people, whoever they were, that you're at the wrong rally, what she was saying is that you're not welcome here. Because Blake puts her finger down, pointing to, like, America, which, again, the world's biggest stretch. Like, we've talked about this so many times. I mean, we can use Blake as an example. And by the way, I've invited Blake on the show. She has not responded. So you're welcome, Blake, to come on anytime. Blake has 250,000 followers on Instagram. I'm assuming way more on podcasts. She probably makes a decent living doing this work. And yet she really thinks that somehow she's persecuted in America. Somehow her rights are under attack. Like it's hilarious. It is comical to see these people gaslight themselves and then tell their audiences how the lines have never been clearer. How do you read the Sermon on the Mount and come away thinking the lines have never been clearer? How do you read Jesus when he says, I come to liberate the oppressed, and think, wow, Trump and J.D. Vance are the ones really advocating for those things. The guys who want to commit mass deportation, the ones who talk about immigrants being poisoned in society, the one who was found liable for sexually assaulting a woman. These are the people who really care about the marginalized. Like, I just want to know to Blake, what Bible or how do you interpret this set of texts that gives you this outcome? I would imagine her biggest one is abortion, but that's baked on a completely false assumption that abortion is slaughtering children. And I'm not going to get into it here. There's been so much done on this, completely from the history of how abortion became this wedge issue to the actual science behind it. It is ridiculous. It is based on ignorance and dogmatism, and the results can be super damaging because it's put people like Blake in a position where now they're trying to really convince people that the man who's on his third marriage, who grabs women, who sleeps with adult film stars and lies about it, the man
who pays them off.
Yeah, the man who we're going to talk about in a second talked about how he wants generals like Hitler at some point. Somehow that is the only Christian choice. Give me a break, Blake. Give me a freaking break. A freaking break. Give me a freaking break.
I do think, though, they have to work overtime to try to paint Kamala as this evil Jezebel, anti-Christian woman because they have to know deep down that Donald Trump is the most anti-Christ candidate we've ever seen.
I would agree. I totally agree.
Like they have to be feeling a certain way about it, so they've got to like do all these mental gymnastics to make Kamala somehow like. I got a comment yesterday that was like, "You're going to be judged on Judgment Day. You're going to be judged for voting for Kamala," and like my initial instinct would be like, "Great, I would much rather be judged for that than voting for the other guy."
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Have you seen this video? Have you seen this video?
Yes.
In a church? I gotta play it. Like, I hope Blake is watching this. I just want to know what you think about this, Blake. And then, you know what? For people listening, this is a church service. This is an actual church. A man is pulling a cart with a baby that is wearing a suit and tie and standing in front of a podium that says Trump 2024 with an infant in front of that and a little like manger scene with an American flag behind it. I'm not kidding. Go watch it on YouTube. Here's the video. I'm going to play it. Check this out. If I can get the audio to work. Let's see. Parents are laughing. The audience is clapping.
The kid has his head down on the podium like he knows he should be embarrassed.
Yeah. Now to be clear, this is in a church. This is a place where we give allegiance to Jesus, right? And instead, this church decides to give their allegiance to a man who likes grabbing women. How much more antithetical can we get? How?
I
don't
confused.
understand.
Was the YMCA song playing in the service, or did someone add that?
I think someone added it. I don't know for sure, but
yeah.
Okay, should we keep going on with this with Blake? It's just it's unbelievable. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Here's the thing: is Donald Trump a perfect man of God?
Not even close.
No one is.
Hold on. That's the sleight of hand. That is the sleight of hand. Is Donald Trump perfect? No. We all know we've all fallen short. As if, April, as if you and I, or like even Blake, as if somehow, right, we're on the same level of moral depravity as someone like Trump is. Like, oh guys, we're all equal. You see how the theology so subtly reinforces the idea that leads to crazy outcomes? Right? Hey, guys, no one's perfect. Yeah, maybe Trump grabs women. Maybe he calls people dogs. Maybe, he makes fun of people. Maybe he lies more than he tells the truth. But no one's perfect. Obviously, Blake, we know that. Harris isn't perfect either. Yet, whatever she believes, it for you is so much more damning to the point where, she hates Christians and therefore it's a clear choice you have to vote for. But guys, Trump, he's not perfect. She's setting up the justification. Right? And
I was going to say, it's because they value beliefs more than actions.
Totally. Okay, I'll back it up and we'll keep going.
No one is. Does he perfectly exemplify Christian values? No. But he is willing to work with us. He is willing to work to uphold our values. He is willing to listen and be influenced by men of God.
Okay, you see, friends, how this works. When we tell you, and Blake, again, come on the show. I will host you. I will be gracious. I'll even fly you into studio. We can talk. You're more than welcome. Do you see how she said the quiet part out loud? Trump is willing to work with us and be influenced by men of God, meaning people that agree with her and people in her theological paradigm. Power and control. Trump will represent us. He will give us what we want. And what do we want? Well, we want a Christian nation, right? We want a place where our Christian values, so-called anyway, are reinforced through social, cultural, and legal norms. And Trump will give us that. See, that's what's so fascinating is that Jesus, when tempted by Satan with power, gives it away. He doesn't take worldly power. He actually rebukes the devil with scripture. Blake actually brags about how Trump will give them the worldly power that they want. And therefore, his moral failings, his moral depravity, even the fact that he doesn't, exemplify all the Christian values, that's all moot because ultimately what matters the most, it's not character, it's not integrity, it's not even Sermon on the Mount values of taking care of the poor or taking care of the sick because affordable healthcare is socialism and welfare is Marxism, right? It's about getting the power and control that we want to maintain the Christian cultural privilege that we're accustomed to. That's all this is about. And Blake just says it flat out.
Jesus never came for the church to have power. That was not his purpose at all.
Constantine did.
At all. If you ever feel gaslit, which MAGA Christians, Christian nationalism are kings and queens of gaslighting. They try to make us seem like we're the bad Christians because of XYZ. Just go read the Sermon on the Mount. Go read the red letters. The teachings of Jesus are so opposite of anything Christian nationalism says. And I just want to make a clear distinction, because I have heard some people on the right too that are like, oh, Christian nationalism, Harris talking about Jesus or going to a church is Christian nationalism. So let's mark the differences. Christian nationalism, it promotes a very specific, narrow-minded worldview based on a literal fundamentalist interpretation of Scripture, elevates that, enforces policies and laws for that narrow belief system to the detriment of others. It does not take into account any other belief system. It elevates one to the detriment of others. If you see other people using their faith, whatever their belief system is, but to elevate multiple worldviews, because we are all human and we all like to welcome the table. Also, MAGA Christians, they can exist in a leftist worldview. There's no actual persecution despite what they claim. So that is a distinct difference. If your Christianity, if you're wanting to elevate your Christianity to the detriment of other belief system, that is nationalism.
Yes. To sum this up succinctly, because you're totally right, April, Christian nationalism believes in maintaining power and control, but other Christian traditions believe in giving away their power and control, right? Also, one more thing to add, the black church only exists because of the racism of the white church. Okay, the black church tradition was birthed out of antebellum slavery, was birthed out of Jim Crow laws, right? They've been advocating for their humanity and their dignity by trying to be, by advocating for their seat at the political table to give themselves the same rights that other folks have been given. So MLK, for example, yes, he was incredibly political and theological. His theology led to his political outcome, right? Of, I have a dream, right? Of equality, of equity. That's very different than why Christian nationalism exists and what they're advocating for. And honestly, Blake is just saying it all out loud, which I really appreciate, right? I appreciate Blake being honest here because it's easier to critique. You don't have to dog whistle anymore. I get it. You think Harris is garbage because of what she said to those people who were saying that abortion is a satanic or a sacrament of Satan, and you use that to springboard into, therefore, Harris doesn't want Christians here in America because she pointed her finger down. And therefore, while Trump isn't perfect, we have a theological paradigm that will give us a justification to still vote for Trump and make the choice clear because he will give us the power and control that we want and need as white Christians.
Yep.
Let's finish this bad boy up.
Something that we see exemplified throughout Scripture. Kings that may not have perfectly served Yahweh, but were advised by and listened to people who did.
Yep. Now we're going to bring in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. We're going to hijack the Jewish texts. We're going to apply them to ourselves because, remember, for white evangelicalism, it's all about them. Everything, the world revolves around them, their understanding of God, and their values, right? So we're going to ignore the Jesus parts now. We're going to toss those out the window, but we're going to pull some obscure passages in the Old Testament, which, by the way, Christ came to fulfill the Old Testament, but hey, it doesn't matter now. And that will be the theological justification that we use to prove that, hey, God can use anyone except Harris. God cannot use a Democrat. Don't forget that, April. God did not use Joe Biden. God did not use Obama. He did not use Clinton. He can use anyone as long as they're a Republican.
Do you know what's so funny too? I remember during Trump's presidency, anytime I would critique the plethora of awful things Trump said and did during his presidency, they would always throw that verse in, I think it's Romans, where it's like, you must like obey the government, that all government is given to the authority by God.
Right.
Notice how they suddenly never use that verse when a Democrat's president.
Nope. Yep. And that's because it is what Scott Colby calls is motivated literalism, right? It's the Bible's only literal when it serves our motivational purposes. And then when it's not, it's no longer relevant. So, okay, almost done.
And that is what we have the opportunity to put in the White House. Not just Donald Trump, but people around him who believe like we do, who aren't going to shun people who believe that Jesus is Lord. That is what's on the ballot this year. And I kind of love that Kamala Harris made that more clear than ever.
Yeah, okay, great. I honestly, I agree with Blake. We've said this often, April, right? I don't think Trump really has any moral grounding or any moral framework or any moral conviction. The people he brings behind him, though, your Russell Vaught's, your authors of Project 2025, J.D. Vance, who sits on a couple of different boards, one of which has Doug Wilson on the same board of directors. She's absolutely right. The people I'm scared of the most is not Trump. It's who Trump and J.D. Vance will bring into the White House. It is your William Wolfs of the world who were in a Trump White House, who would probably come back, right? It's your Doug Wilsons who will probably get a hearing with people in power. So I agree with Blake on this point 100%. And that's all the more reason to be freaking terrified. You think that the Alabama Supreme Court ruling that embryos from IVF are people is scary? You're looking at that nationally under this kind of administration. You think that Ryan Walters demanding that kids 5th through 12th grade get taught the Bible because it's historically relevant to the founding of the U.S. and trying to buy 50,000 Bibles that just so happen to line up with the Trump Bible is scary? Imagine if that's a national thing, which Ryan Walters did say, by the way. We played this 2 weeks ago. He did say last time that they are setting up the scaffolding, the outline for all other states to follow. So I completely agree with Blake on that part. You should be absolutely freaking terrified at the people that would get power in the name of their very zealous and very white God who believes that people not like them are inferior or more sinful and are deserving of wrath and judgment, not love and grace.
The only people that would benefit in that world are white men.
Yeah. 100%.
So I hope the white women, that majority, speaking to you, fellow white women out there who overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump in 2020, who I think are planning to do so again this time, stop it. Look, stop it. They won't pick you. You will. Yeah. This is going to be detrimental to you as well.
It's voting against your self-interest.
Speaking of Alabama, I'm wearing an IUD necklace. This benefits Elizabeth Anderson, who's running for the 6th Congressional District in Alabama on reproductive rights. So if you're in Alabama, spread the word. Elizabeth Anderson for Congress.
One thing that's really important that we've been trying to communicate more and more, and you're going to hear us kind of talk about as we get up to the election, is I want to remind people, and maybe this isn't for you, maybe this is for someone else in your life, that you have permission to vote differently than how you were taught to vote. Like, you have permission. Your vote is private. No one knows who you vote for. You are allowed to vote differently than how you were taught to vote as a young white evangelical. Like, you really do. When you go into that voting booth, you have the option to vote for whoever you want. And by the way, that is your right. I'm never going to denigrate someone for voting, even if it's for someone that I totally disagree with. I understand that. Okay, the world's bigger than just me. But if you're someone who's maybe on the fence, or you're like, what if my parents find out? What if my pastor finds out? What if God finds out? Your vote is private. God is not going to smite you down. And I say that as someone who has voted differently than how he was taught in the past. And I'm still alive and well. Yeah. Okay. You have permission.
Also, just a reminder, every single election since I can remember, I was told if the Democrat wins, Christians are going to be persecuted like never before.
Totally.
We're going to lose our rights.
Every time.
It has never happened. And it will never happen.
You only have white evangelicals, and Andrew Seidel has written about this in his book, American Crusade. He covers Supreme Court cases over the decades. Your rights as white evangelical Christians have only expanded, okay? Mm-hmm. I want to say it again. I say it a lot, but I'll say it again. White evangelicals have their own publishing industry, their own movie industry, their own music industry. They have their own church industry. They have people who make millions of dollars being a pastor. They are not persecuted. 89% of Congress is Christian, okay?
Christians, They have everything going for them between private education, homeschooling, church.
Yes.
Like they are so privileged that they can actually live in a bubble.
Yes.
Where they don't know about the atrocities that marginalized people face.
Totally. And frankly, it's your right to do so. If you want to homeschool your kids, you want to put them in private school, go ahead. But the problem is when these people believe it's not enough for us to do it with our families or our communities. The whole U.S., the whole world has to submit, has to bow. They'll say bow their knee to Christ. What they're saying is that they have to bow their knee to us because we are the true ambassadors of what Christ wants done in the world. So it's a very dangerous militant zealotry that motivates these people, where it's not enough just to raise their families in peace and quiet. It's not enough to go to their churches and say whatever they want. Now they need the whole world to reflect that as well. So, again, I know it's Friday. Happy Friday, friends, but we're only 2 weeks out. We got to hammer this shit. We just have to.
And also, your local elections matter a lot too.
100%.
I know in Kentucky this year we have a school choice issue on the ballot. Vote no for school choice. They passed it in Indiana recently, and it all but defunded public schools. Like, public schools are already struggling, and these school choice vouchers that are going around out there that are on probably in multiple states too are very bad for education. And vote no on 2 if you're in Kentucky.
Okay. Well,
sorry,
cool.
Just a little sidebar.
No, you're all good.
Because local elections matter a lot too. So
where should we go here? I mean, should we get a little more levity here and talk about? We could have played one of the clips that we wanted to play at beer camp that we didn't get a chance to with Brian and Diana was a pastor. Should we just play the clip? Like a little.
Sure, let's play the clip.
Maybe some humor, right? That was a pretty intense segment. I think that's fair to say.
Okay.
This is a mega church pastor. I think it's a large church. What's this guy's name? Do you know?
Oh, I did know. It should say in the file. I think it's Rodney.
Oh, you're probably right. I gotta find it. Hold on.
I can pull it up.
I got it here. Do I have it here? Oh no, because I'm not in my program.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry. I got it. Apostle Robert Henderson.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're driving, try not to swerve off the road as you listen to this.
It's a slow burn. It'll get there though. Listen.
Yeah. Here we go.
I went to a little place in Kentucky, and I taught on a Friday night. I think it was a Friday night, and I was talking about the courts of heaven. Well, the next day when we came back Saturday morning, they began to tell me that there had been a man there the night before that was now in the hospital, and that had suddenly, for some unforeseen reason, had some kind of a condition that had caused his fever to go so high that the doctors were literally afraid it was going to cook his brain. And whatever they were trying, nothing was working to bring the fever down. And so they said, well, could you pray? And maybe even from a court of heaven perspective. So I began to pray, just kind of actually fumbling around, trying to figure out what would be the proper way to pray. And all of a sudden, another person in attendance at that conference said, I need to tell you something. He said, that man that is in that condition has been a lifelong Democrat. And we have tried to convince him that he is in agreement with the spirit of death because of his vote. Do you understand that when you vote, you come into agreement with spirits? You come into an agreement with spirit. So you need to make sure your vote is connecting you to the right thing in the spirit world.
I hate it here.
Are there other countries in their elections that make voting a salvation issue?
Or is it spirit of death, April, of death?
I've never heard cause of death, voting Democrat.
Okay, I don't listen. This isn't about responding to it because there's nothing to really respond to. I just had to play it, so I wasn't the only one who heard this. I mean, yeah.
This is just though the level of it's actually really sad because a lot of people in this world just don't live in reality. They live in this very fear-mongering echo chamber that's very black and white. Republicans are always good. Democrats are always bad. When in reality, at the end of the day, most people we want the same things. And like, you know what I mean? Like even Democrats,
Yes.
their main thing is abortion.
Totally.
Democrats want to lower abortions.
Yes.
They,
and they
like,
do. They do, by the way.
They actually lower them. Like because abortion is a symptom. The problem is unwanted pregnancies. And also not
life-threatening complications of pregnancies.
Right. And abortion's not just unwanted pregnancies. It also helps save women's lives. But regardless, we don't want, like, I've never heard a Democrat that say they want to raise the abortion rate.
What's tough, April, is that sometimes I feel like elitists talking like this, like, oh, they're so anti-intellectual and look at how sophisticated we are. That's not what I'm trying to do. I literally, at least from my vantage point, I'm just trying to apply the tools I was given as a white evangelical consistently, right? So truth matters to me. Data matters to me. Faith matters to me. The
character
way of Jesus
matters.
Yes, integrity. These things matter to me. What is okay, look, let's just say for sake of argument that I'm a Democrat. I'm really not. I'm actually at this point I think more of a leftist, but whatever. In my world that I want to see, women have access to contraceptives on demand. Women have access, and men have access to quality sexual education that teaches them about how bodies work, how genitalia works, how sex works, right? How consent works. I would love to be in a society where affordable wages were guaranteed by working a full-time job, right? Where you didn't go to McDonald's to make $7 an hour because that's not you can't live on that, but your wage or your work actually paid for you or provided enough for you to be able to take care of yourself, maybe even a family, right? I would love to see a world where if someone was pregnant, they got guaranteed family leave for up to maybe a year, like in other countries. Maybe our government sends them a baby, a newborn starting pack that has like formula and diapers like they do in Scotland. I would love to see a world where childcare was affordable. So in this late stage capitalistic nightmare we live in, where the top 1% is sucking up more wealth than ever, right? And that sets up an economy where parents have to work, both of them, to provide, they can at least get their kids taken care of while they're working. I would love to see those things. And we know from data that those things all would lower the abortion rates. And they have. And for some reason, these things that, in my opinion, are incredibly pro-family, they're even pro-biblical values, dare I use the phrase, right? Somehow these common sense, normal things are Marxist, they're socialist, it's big government, we can't do that. I don't understand. If in your mind, abortion at any stage is slaughtering a child, if it is in your mind, pragmatically speaking, wouldn't you do anything you could to save just one child from being slaughtered, right? Wouldn't you do anything? Wouldn't you pass any legislation needed, no matter what it is, even if you disagree with it morally, for the greater cause? That's how you know it's disingenuous. That's how you know it's just propaganda. They don't actually believe that children are being slaughtered. They use that as a talking point to, again, push through these draconian abortion bans that A, don't stop abortions, B, raise the maternal and infant mortality rates, right? And C, really harm pregnant people who can't get the emergency care that they need.
I'm gonna push back slightly in that I do think a lot of them believe that babies are being murdered because they've been told that's what's happening.
Well, they don't act like it then, in my opinion. But yes,
well, I
you're
would say
right.
the politicians, the people, like the talking heads on Fox News, those people, I would agree that they are disingenuous. I do think your average voter, and because I was one, I believed that babies were actually being murdered. But you are 100% right in that if you look at the data, if you actually want to lower the abortion rate, you would vote for the Democrat because the abortion rate goes down under Democrats, even with bans. Since Roe v. Wade was overturned and all these bans started happening, the national abortion rate went up, which we've talked about. Yep. So, and I also just want to point out too, we are not people just that have always been out from the outside pointing our finger and being like, totally. Oh my gosh, y'all are so terrible, blah, blah, blah. I think, and I don't want to speak for you, but like for me, I feel more passionate about these issues and calling this out because I was one of them, because I was lied to about what abortion actually is. I was lied to about who Democrats actually are. I was lied to that we were the party of character and righteousness, the moral majority. I believed that, and I feel completely lied to, which is why I am now speaking out against it.
100%. And hopefully it's clear by now that, at least for me, it seems like you too, April, we are no sycophants of the Democratic Party. I mean, we spent the first beginning of the show railing them for what they're doing when it comes to Palestine, Israel. I mean, I get it, friends. This is not jumping from one fundamentalism to another, but we're just trying to point out that, hey, this narrative that many of us were sold as children and young people about the Democrats or the Democrats is just not true. And again, truth matters to me, right? Integrity matters. Character matters. So, okay. Well, I have a surprise clip for you, April.
Oh, boy.
I came across this kind of last minute. You have not seen this. This is Tucker Carlson speaking at Turning Point Action, an event, I think in Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, yeah, in Georgia. It says it on the screen. This is, it's about a 2-minute clip, but I really want you to hear this. Now, the context is, Tucker is talking about how Trump is kind of like the dad that comes home to an unruly house. Okay, he's kind of comparing it to, like, the father figure of your kids are out of control, and then someone like Trump comes in and does all this stuff, and that's what America needs. So that's the context. Listen to this slow burn, and then we'll discuss. If I can play it.
If you allow your 2-year-old to smear the contents of his diapers on the wall of your living room, and you do nothing about it, if you allow your 14-year-old to light a joint at the breakfast table, if you allow your hormone-addled 15-year-old daughter to slam the door of her bedroom and give you the finger, you're going to get more of it. And those kids are going to wind up in rehab. It's not good for you, and it's not good for them. No. There has to be a point at which dad comes home.
Just buckle up. It gets weird.
Yeah, that's right. Dad comes home. And he's pissed. Dad is pissed. He's not vengeful. He loves his children. Disobedient as they may be, he loves them. Because they're his children. They live in his house. But he's very disappointed in their behavior. And he's going to have to let them know. He's going to have to get to your room right now and think about what you did. And when dad gets home, you know what he says? You've been a bad girl. You've been a bad little girl, and you're getting a vigorous spanking right now.
Ew.
And no, it's not going to hurt me more than it hurts you. No, it's not. I'm not going to lie. This is going to hurt you a lot more than it hurts me. And you earned this. You're getting a vigorous spanking because you've been a bad girl. And it has to be this way. It has to be this way because it's true. And you're only going to get better when you take responsibility for what you did. That's not said in the spirit of hate. It's not said in the spirit of vengeance or bigotry. Far from it. It's said in the spirit of justice, which is the purest and best thing there is. And without it, things fall apart.
Okay, now we'll get to the vigorous spanking little girl thing in a minute. I just want to point out that Tucker here is trying to make it seem like Trump is coming back home to America to put people in their place. And then he says that it's not done in the spirit of vengeance, but Trump himself has said that he is their justice and their retribution. So, again, this is a lie, meaning it's not the truth. Tucker is actively lying about the person that Trump is, the person that Trump has said that he is, and trying to make it seem like Trump loves. First off, who are his children? I'm an American. I'm a father. Trump is not my dad by any stretch of the imagination. Biden is not my dad. It's so authoritarian, the language being used here. But then he goes to that weird comment about how you've been a bad girl. You need a vigorous spanking.
Why did he choose girl in that scenario?
Why do you think, April?
I feel very uncomfy.
This is said at an event for Trump. Turning Point Action hosted it. That's Charlie Kirk, the good Christian man. Tucker Carlson, who just, by the way, platformed a neo-Nazi sympathizer a few weeks ago on his channel, is speaking here to a round of applause. I would love for Blake. I would love to ask Blake like where the Christian values are in any of this. I would just love to know, like, again, what fruit of the Spirit are we talking about? How does this line up with Paul's understanding of love in 1 Corinthians 13? Where are the Beatitudes here? Because I'm hearing quite the opposite in Tucker's speech, along with some really weird spanking shit that makes you go, "Oh, that just sounds very gross, Tucker."
Didn't we as a society agree that spanking is child abuse?
Well, maybe some of us, but not these people.
Yeah. That whole thing's just so weird. Also, just how, again, these men, they hate women. They don't like women. The idea that women have unruly homes that only can be saved with a daddy coming home. Like, it is so anti-women in general. Like, it's assuming that the woman's home, that the woman loses control over her children, that the only answer is a man.
What a terrible analogy. Like, again, like it's interesting. I've noticed this pattern over and over again, that really every accusation is a confession, right? People like Tucker and Charlie and whoever else are going to talk about the threat of tyranny, the threat of liberty being stolen from you. But then this is their analogy. Right, their analogy is that Trump is like a dad coming home to an unruly house where kids are smearing poop on the wall and the wife couldn't do it. So he's going to come in and give people spankings. That's also what authoritarians do. Like, this is authoritarianism 101. You've just admitted to it, and you have a crowd full of people, most likely statistically white evangelicals, celebrating it. So your accusation is actually a confession.
It's weird. Weird. Also, we didn't even I did see, this is a total sidebar, but did you see Tim Walz at a rally recently called he said I saw a tweet about it. He was talking about Elon Musk hopping around on stage at a MAGA rally, and he said he was jumping around like a dipshit.
He did not say that.
He did. And someone tweeted that someone was probably telling Tim Walz, like, hey, you need to stop calling them weird. It's not good. And then they're like, Tim's been like, okay, I'm going to call him a dipshit instead, which I do not condone.
No, that's dehumanizing.
But there's something really, Tim Walz is just such a dad. He's just such
that is a very dad thing. Yes.
Just like a white guy dad that.
Look, April, to be clear,
makes me laugh.
Right? Does Tim Walz embrace every Christian value? No, not by a long shot. No, he doesn't. But
he's not a perfect man.
Yeah, exactly. But God raises up leaders who don't serve Yahweh perfectly, but do serve a greater good. And I do think that Tim Walz is going to be that champion for us. See, we could do it too. Yeah. There it is.
Is Kamala perfect?
No, of course not. Of course not. But the lines have never been clearer, April. Speaking of weird, as we kind of wrap up the show, by the way, friends, thanks so much for listening. I know this is quite an intense one, but it's been a crazy week. Another crazy thing that I thought I would never, ever see, Donald Trump, air quotes here, working a McDonald's drive-thru. That happened this week.
It sure did.
They shut down the McDonald's. They did this for a photo op. Everyone was pre-vetted. All the people who came through the drive-thru were pre-vetted. And right-wing media goes, wow, look at Trump, the working man. And I am literally like, guys, this was a staged photo op. Like, what do you mean working man? Trump has never worked a day in his life when it comes to things like, fast food restaurants. And suddenly we applaud him for being...
And the only reason he did this, too, is to make it seem like, because Kamala has mentioned she used to work at a McDonald's in like the early 80s, I think.
Yeah.
And they're saying she's lying about that. And then McDonald's released a statement that they don't have that they don't really keep their records from the 80s. So they can't confirm it, but they're not denying it either.
Again, though, I mean, if we're just looking at like a scale here of who lies more, are we really going to trust the man and the campaign that lies about everything? I mean, in 2016, they lied about the inaugural numbers, right? They lie about everything. But we're going to take Trump's word that Harris never worked at McDonald's. Like, why would Harris lie about that? What would be the angle for her to be like, you know what, guys, here's a good lie that we should run with to get the vote. I used to work at McDonald's. Right. Like, why would she lie about that? It makes no sense.
I mean, she wouldn't. I mean, and to be fair, I think all politicians lie to some degree, or at least stretch the truth. But you have Donald Trump here, who literally like lies about the stupid stuff. He was speaking he was speaking to a group of Germans at some point and said that his father was born in Germany. So when you can, a Google search says his father was born in the Bronx. He literally said that a hurricane was going to hit Alabama. The weather people said, oh, actually, it's not hitting Alabama. Instead of just saying, oh, I misspoke, he literally drew a Sharpie to like the official hurricane path to make it seem like he was actually right. Like, he lies about stupid stuff just because he lies.
Perhaps that's the biggest, and I'm speaking broadly here, perhaps that's the biggest difference. Remember when Tim Walz at the VP debate was kind of caught in a lie about where he was, I think in China, and he really fumbled it. Like, it was really bad. It was embarrassing, right? We're like, Tim, like, just say you weren't there. He eventually did, even though he really stumbled his way through it. But he did say, like, he was stupid, he was a knucklehead, and he misspoke. That's way more accountability than anything Trump has ever admitted to. Trump still believes the election was stolen. Trump lies and doesn't even acknowledge that he misspoke. He only spins more lies. And then his base goes, that man's telling the truth. Like, really? Really? This is, if this is your version of truth, we're really galaxies apart. Because the way I was taught truth in my evangelical space was that evidence demands a verdict. Right, Sean McDowell? So evidence in Trump's case demands a verdict, and the evidence is in. The election was not stolen. Trump lies about everything and takes no accountability. But suddenly that evidence doesn't matter.
And the party that screams freedom, personal freedom, is actually actively trying to take away freedoms of everybody who's not them.
Totally.
And I don't know if we have time to go into this story, but the smoking gun this week is that some White House aides that worked with Donald Trump, including his chief of staff, John Kelly, said that Trump has made several references to liking Hitler, that Hitler did some good. If you could read this, it says John Kelly, the retired Marine, this is from CNN, the retired Marine general who is Donald Trump's White House chief of staff, entered the 2024 fray in a stunning fashion in a series of interviews published Tuesday, saying that the former president fits, quote, into the general definition of a fascist, and that he spoke of loyalty of Hitler's Nazi generals. John Kelly told the New York Times that Donald Trump said that he, quote, certainly prefers the dictator approach to government.
There's one more.
He also confirmed to The Atlantic that Trump had said he wished his military personnel showed him the same deference Adolf Hitler's Nazi generals showed the German dictator during World War II. And he recounted the moment. Do you mean Bismarck's generals? Kelly told The Atlantic that he asked Trump. He added, I mean, I knew he didn't know who Bismarck was or about the Franco-Prussian War. I said, quote, do you mean the Kaiser's generals? Surely you can't mean Hitler's generals. And then Trump said, yeah, Hitler's generals. And then Kelly said that he explained to him that Rommel had to commit suicide after taking part in a plot against Hitler.
I again, it doesn't. What frustrates me here, April, is that this will do nothing to persuade white evangelicals of how dangerous their champion actually is, right? Yeah. And when you think about the fact that Tucker Carlson platformed a neo-Nazi sympathizer a few weeks ago, and he has no pushback from white evangelicals, you just start thinking, like, where is this movement heading? You know, I mean, I remember when I was a youngster in these spaces, it was all clear. Nazis were bad. Hitler was bad. There was nothing redeemable about Hitler. Nothing. I mean, maybe you can analyze him as far as like a leadership style to see what made him so compelling, but it wasn't because he did good things. It was because you wanted to figure out how do people fall for this stuff and end up, killing millions and millions of Jewish people and starting a world war that killed millions more. And now we're in a point in the timeline where not Donald Trump's opposition, not Nancy Pelosi, his own chief of staff, okay, someone who works very closely with Trump, who has every incentive to support Trump, has come out to say that Trump actually thinks that maybe the loyalty that Hitler's generals showed him is something to be learned from.
I mean,
and
the way
it's
Trump
crickets. It's crickets.
Yeah,
Do you
Trump
think
has
Blake?
praised.
Do you think Blake is going to cover this? No, she's not.
I mean, Trump has praised dictators, Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, Hitler. I mean, J.D. Vance himself, before he sold his soul, called Trump America's Hitler.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, Trump said, I need the kind of, this is from The Atlantic. The headline at The Atlantic says to Trump, quote, I need the kind of generals that Hitler had. They have him
crazy.
quoting that based on, and of course, just to full disclosure too, the White House, Trump's aides currently are denying that he's.
Wow, shocker. But you know what? Even if they didn't, let's say they're like, you know what? Yeah, Trump did say that. You think like Charlie Kirk would go, whoa, Trump, way too far for praising Hitler's generals. No, they wouldn't, because they're not motivated and fueled by character, integrity, truth. They're motivated by power and control. They will take levers of power and control no matter who has them, as long as the agreement is, we'll scratch your back if you scratch ours. Doesn't matter how depraved you are, doesn't matter what you say, we will always advocate for you. And that's the logic here. That's the absolute logic. So
I just want to clarify too. White evangelicals, like American Christianity, is so we think we're the main character in every situation. Even like Revelation, end times, like we believe America is like the number one player, that God's plan for all of humanity hinges on our country's election, who wins and who doesn't. Like we have main character energy when we are not even an extra in the Bible. America is not mentioned at all. So anyone that tells you that your salvation hinges on how you vote, that you can only be a Christian and vote for a Republican, it's just gaslighting. It's not true. Like it doesn't say for God so loved America.
Yep.
It's just such a non-issue in the scheme of your faith. Like we all vote based on our values, but the idea that we're not Christians because of how we vote, or you can't be a Christian if you don't vote a certain way, it's ridiculous. Like I know people are saying that. I get it all the time. Tim gets it all the time. Like we see it too. No, you are not alone, and you can absolutely exercise your faith however you feel led.
Yep. I mean, when you think about it, it's the narcissism is off the charts, right?
Yeah.
Everything revolves around us. What we think our God is doing in the world, how we think about our understanding of the Bible, how we interpret the Bible, the books that we all write to scratch each other's backs, the little celebrity culture that we create, right? And now other people have to succumb to it too, or else we're going to be under the wrath of God. Like, wow, bold statements, bold of you to speak on behalf of the Almighty. I mean, there is a theory, or there's a theological understanding that taking in the name of that taking God's name in vain is not saying, "Oh my God." It is when you claim to wear the mark of God and misuse it for your own benefit and your own power. And that's what we're watching what evangelicals do. Take God's name in vain by their actions and who they advocate for.
Like walking into a political rally and yelling Jesus is Lord as a political stunt and then claiming Christian persecution.
Exactly. That would be a great example, April. If that ever was to happen in America, that would be a great example of taking God's name in vain. Yeah. But I'm no theologian, so just saying.
Me neither.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're just some noobs. Shall we end on tweet of the week? We got some doozies.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's laugh at this one. Here you go, April. This one's for you.
This is for someone named Julie Donuts. Dear ladies, if you love your breasts, stop getting mammograms. Big Pharma is lying to you.
Well, there it is.
I honestly
20,000 likes. 20,000 likes.
The conspiracy theories go deep, and I did look her up. I think she's got some kind of Christian God works. God is strong. I don't know, some kind of Christian thing, and she's like a patriot Christian in her bio. But yeah, so I honestly don't even know what to say because it is so. I don't know. I'm speechless. It's okay. Silly. It's silly.
Next.
Okay, so this is a quote tweet. Joel Webbin, who we've talked about before, he's quote tweeting someone named Nicholas Ferroni, who says, if you are okay with having Muslim, Jewish, and Hindu students sit through a Christian prayer in public school and are not okay with having Christian students sit through a Muslim, Jewish, or Hindu prayer, then it's not religious freedom, it's religious oppression. And
by the way, he's right. Yeah. He's right here. That statement is right.
100%. Joel Webbin quote tweets it and said, then religious oppression it is.
Unbelievable.
They say the quiet parts out loud. They're
saying it.
They want Christian supremacy, not religious freedom.
Hey, Blake, Joel Webbin is definitely a big Trumper and is looking forward to a Trump presidency who would embrace this kind of idea. What do you think about it? I would love to know, if this is what you think in a pluralistic society that is democratic in nature, full of 300 million people, many of which do not believe like you, if they should have the equal representation under the Constitution, or if the First Amendment only applies to people like you and Joel Webbin. We'd just love your thoughts on that.
Yeah,
I'm a little spicy today, but just
Christian nationalism goes against the Constitution and the Christian faith.
100%.
Okay.
This is a good one.
So this lady had a question. Her name's Barry Weiss. Question: who is the intellectual successor to the beloved late Reverend Timothy Keller? Megan Basham replied, the establishment institutions won't like this answer, but in terms of real influence on the next generation, particularly among young men, Douglas Wilson is moving mountains.
And this is why you should be terrified.
You're muted.
And this is why you should be terrified. Right here. Because honestly, I think that she's quite right in terms of the right-wing evangelical world, that Doug Wilson is gaining more and more notoriety, more influence. And Doug Wilson is also someone who has no problem calling some women the C word on his blogs, or has no problem writing books with a known white supremacist about slavery, or has no problem marrying off a known pedophile to someone in his church, who later, when they gave birth, was convicted of, abusing said infant. But hey, Doug Wilson is the one moving mountains, and Megan wants to brag about that. Hey, this is great news. By the way, Doug Wilson has no actual theological training, and for a while was seen as a heretic because of his views on the Trinity. So even his theology is not agreed upon or liked widely by conservative evangelicals. But for Megan, because he is, pushing the patriarchy heavy, because he believes that women's primary roles are baby making and sandwich making, that's not exaggeration, Doug Wilson is he's killing it. And he is the successor to Timothy Keller. I mean, Tim Keller, which, by the way, massive influence on me when I was younger. A gentle spirit, a humble spirit, despite his theology. I mean, the guy was not known for, being a Doug Wilson type.
It's also just really... It blows my mind and also just makes me really sad when you see women like Meg, who write books, who have full-on careers, who make lots of money, promote men who want her to be in a kitchen.
Well, listen, I'm not trying to be this person, but Megan probably got a pretty sizable book advance. She went on vacation for 2 or 3 weeks in Italy. And I'm just like, you write a book about shepherds being for sale. Tell me how this works. I mean, Megan, you speak at Turning Point USA events. They're funded by billionaires. I'm sure you get paid decently to go there. Are you not actually participating in the very thing that you're accusing people of doing? I just don't understand. I mean, without the breakthroughs of feminism, even in right-wing evangelical spaces, Megan has no career.
Right.
Ali Sucky has no career. Zero. Ali Sucky's role is a homemaker. Her voice shouldn't be heard publicly. So it's fascinating watching them spit on the work of people who quite literally sacrifice their lives so people like Megan and Ali can become pretty successful, pretty financially wealthy. I'm assuming anyway. I mean, there's no reason to think why it wouldn't be that way. To then denigrate their own tradition that gave them that privilege. And right. It's not a privilege. It's a right. Women have a right
really
to
sad.
speak.
And there is a lot of internalized misogyny in these worlds. And I still I've had to unlearn my own internalized misogyny too from just growing up in that world.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and
I hope...
Megan is a good example of, sorry to cut you off there, April, just last thought, and then we'll wrap it up. It's been almost 2 hours. Megan is a good example of someone who embraces the MAGA way, which is to never admit that you're wrong. I follow her on Twitter religiously. I see her stuff. There's not been one time where she's like, you know what? I made a mistake here. You know what? You're right. That was an incorrect thing to say. There's always a deflection. There's always a way to twist why what she said is right and why you're wrong. There is no humility. There's no intellectual honesty in these spaces because the mantra is take control, take power, fight the evil ones. And people like me, people like you, people who might vote Democrat, we are the enemies of these people. Yeah. That's how they see us.
And I just want to say too, I don't view MAGA as the enemy. In a lot of ways too, I have a lot of empathy for people that get caught up in that world because I do think a lot of them really believe it, which is just sad. It's a really scary place to be, which does not negate their harm. But like, I don't agree with people saying like no true Christian could vote Republican either. Like on the flip side, like I'm not here questioning someone else's faith. And it's always disheartening when I repeatedly, and we repeatedly will give grace for them, but it's never reciprocated.
No, it's not going to be. It's not good faith. And to be clear, and I think we might disagree here a little bit, which is fine. I don't think that someone's salvation is in question for voting for Trump. That's not what this is about. I just have a lot of questions. Like, help me understand the congruency between allegiance to Jesus and like this thing that has taken over the evangelical movement that is steeped into humanization, hate, lies. Like I just have questions, you know. So like when I met Rob McCoy, the person who disciples Charlie Kirk, who's a big Christian nationalist, I asked him that. I was at Turning Point USA. I said, Pastor McCoy, help me understand how you're a pastor of the way of Jesus, and we're in this space full of dehumanization, and how you reconcile that. That's more of my question. It's not so much that you can't be a Christian. It's how do you get there? Help me understand because I'm missing it. I'm missing something here.
Yeah, I think a much better question is, how are you following the teachings of Jesus? By promoting these beliefs.
Right.
That's a better question.
Yeah, I'm with you. Wow. Well, this was a good episode. I mean, we had a lot to get out. We missed last week. I missed doing this. I'm so glad that we got a chance to get it out there. Friends, I would love your thoughts in the comments as always. And of course, thank you for listening. And thanks for watching. Definitely vote. Yeah,
go vote.
Please. Vote early.
Don't sit this one out. It's important. Early voting's happening in a lot of places.
Go.
Vote. And you're not alone. We're all tired. We will get through this.
Yes.
Whatever happens, we will be here.
Yes.
We will survive. We'll figure it out. But go vote right now.
Go vote. Goodbye. Have a good day.
Farewell.